On this episode of The Exhausted Majority with Tim Ryan, produced by We the People, Tim and I talk about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, of course, giving us joy in these trying times. And by trying times, we mean the exhausting, barely averted government shutdown. We also talk about food, specifically the food is medicine movement. Sometimes looking back at how it was done is a way to move forward. We end up talking about stoicism and Coach Wooden. Thank you for tuning in. Here we go. Tim, very nice to see you again.
Parker.
I know that you just got back from a long week of travel, so kind of excited to catch up. One thing that I wanted to start out with, I don't know if you've seen this on the social media, but the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce romance, question mark.
Phenomenon. It's turned into...
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So have you been following it?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, you know, I had to bet the Chiefs last night just to see if we could take this thing out for a spin, you know. Didn't work out, but yeah, it's been great. It's been great. I've had, you know, my niece ended up seeing a couple of the concerts this summer, and so we've been talking a lot about her and her impact on the world, and just, man, her microphone has gotten so big and just in the last however many months, and then to see it kind of converge with the culture of NFL football is just like kaboom.
Yeah.
I mean, what aspect of society are we missing here? You know, you've got her,
got everything.
And you got music and the entertainment piece, and then you got NFL football in September, October. As things start to heat up, it's just really, it's kind of cool, kind of fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. And, you know, I think that the response has been so huge. I mean, Travis Kelce's jersey sales went up 300%. You know, I mean, we have Swifties wearing Kelce jerseys. But I also just getting this sense, right, and something that we talk about a lot, but the sense that it's like the people are begging for this kind of stuff to put their energy into. They feel so many other kind of parts of kind of world anxiety, of country anxiety, of, you know, the looming shutdown, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you know, is that they just see something like this and they're like, as you were saying, right, how big is this? How amazing is
Feels
this?
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels good. Happy, joy, you know, that we've talked about a lot on the podcast here is like joy. Like people are, you know, looking for happiness, for some joy, and then to see her in the box, like really cheering, and she's like, let's fucking go. And then like people are saying shouldn't talk that way. I'm like, everyone talks that way. What are we talking about? You know, and just to see her up there having fun. She's with her, you know, Kelsey's mom, and like they're hanging out, and it just seemed like so like genuine. It didn't seem like, oh, these are two people just trying to sell more jerseys or, you know, stay in the cultural streams. It seemed like something little magic may have happened, and yeah, just two, you know, seems like two cool people, just like
that'd
having
be like
some
our
fun.
royal wedding, you know, like I think the country would come together. There'd be like
NFL,
parades,
football, and Taylor Swift. Holy cow. Yeah. But it's fun. And I think that's exactly, you know, kind of the point that you're making is that I think the country is just so thirsty for some level of just like joyfulness and fun and like cool and you know, you're certainly not getting it from politics. And yeah, so thank God for Taylor Swift and Kelce, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go Chiefs.
You know, one thing that I've always, you know, Taylor, she always dips her toes into politics, right? Like, I mean, and I think in a very responsible way, and I think as much as you know, we should expect, right, kind of celebrity to, you know, to get into that arena. Did you see her, you know, national, you know, kind of voter registration, you know, tweet? I mean, basically all she has to do is like tweet, put it out on her social media spheres, and, you know, you get like an amazing effect. I mean, what do you think about celebrities in the political sphere and how they, you know, how they kind of maneuver around it? And do you think politics likes it, or, you know, as a former politician, what did you kind of think when, you know, you were like, get out of here, you know, this is my arena?
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. I mean, we're all citizens, and so many of these artists write about things that are, happening to people, and life experiences that are shared by fellow citizens. So they, clearly are always influencing the culture. And as we say, politics is downstream of that culture. And I think it's, being a responsible citizen is awesome. But without jamming it down someone's throat, I think, or being divisive about it. Like we see a couple of the country music stars are intentionally being divisive at a time when the country needs to heal. And I just feel like that's not the job of the artist. The job of the artist is above politics. It's you're almost a religious figure of sorts. The Pope doesn't weigh in on every little political thing, or nor should he. You're trying to set the high bar, set the high standard. And I think she's done that. And I think she's done that in a way that's very classy. I mean, that clip of her from a few years back and the argument she was having. Have you seen that with her must have been her dad and one of her managers about, you're in the South, you can't say these things, it's going to hurt your career. And she's like, fuck it. I mean, that was her instinct, And so now I think, because of what she sings about, and I'm not a huge Swiftie, not because I wouldn't love her music, but because it's just never been like super introduced to me until like this summer, and I'm like, I got to get into this. But for her just to say, go vote, it's like a huge contribution, because young people, her audience is going to go vote. They're going to vote climate. They're going to vote choice. They're going to vote tolerance across the board. They don't have to agree with every detail, but they're going to be a tolerant group of people, a strong group of women that we need in the body politic today. So all in all, man, a huge net gain for it. I mean, I wish she was dating a Cleveland Brown, but what are you going to do? Can't have all your dreams come true.
Yeah. And you make such a good point. I mean, if we, kind of switch it up, politics is downstream from culture. And, but say for a second it wasn't, and we need these artists, right? We need this, to feel good, to give us joy, because politics isn't doing it, right? Like, what if we switch it, and like, what if in these days, in this last week, if politics was the top headliner, which it certainly, they certainly tried to do by threatening to shut down the government, They certainly tried to take away a little bit of that joy that, we were all feeling from this budding romance. And that's kind of, we try not to talk too much about politics, and what's going on in DC here. But, what is up with this? Seeming like every time we get a spending bill, every time we need to pass to keep the government open, we go through this process, which, for the last 10 days has been, the government's going to shut down, or we're going to, or there's going to be a terrible bill. They're not going to, the Senate bill isn't going to match up. Childcare is going to close, national parks are going to close. Like, right. It's like, just throwing this to our face. You have, 2 decades of experience in kind of dealing with this, but it's obviously, it seems it's just ratcheted up. Like, what has happened, Tim? Like, and can you give us a little viewpoint on how this all works, and why are we at this stage now?
Yeah, it's a complete breakdown of the political system. I mean, completely broken. And I've enjoyed my 9 or 10 months out of politics a great deal, but never as much as like this past week. Just watching this, I'm like, I've done that 5 or 6 times. I mean, like,
what is it like?
There's nobody in the office buildings. There's nowhere to go. Everyone's grumpy as fuck because like nobody's getting paid. So staffers are there and like trying to fix it. And there's always a handful of assholes that are like ruining it for everybody, even like the house gym. Like the house gym was like my sanctuary. It's where you could go, you get a workout in, get your staff can't get in there. Like you could be completely like, completely go down and read, you just like chill out, make some calls, whatever. So the house gym closes down. There's just towels are piling up, and like, you can't. And it's like even the one place where you could go for like sanctuary, it that goes away too. And so like everybody's miserable, and nobody can talk to the 5-10 people that are hanging the whole thing up. Like they're completely disconnected from the reality of the situation. They have to be in the spotlight. It never ever, whether it's on the debt ceiling or closing down the government on a budget thing, it never fucking does anything. Never. There's never like, oh, we really like shifted the course of the republic because we did. It doesn't do that at all, and it's immature. It's a bunch of juveniles who just like being in front of the camera and getting on TV and feeling like they've done something. They did a bloodletting, and it doesn't get us anywhere. And it's the fact that it keeps happening. I tell people all the time, when Democrats took over in 2007, they took over the House and the Senate. George W. Bush was still president. There was a war going on. Raging, and there half the country wanted us out immediately, and yet we still passed a budget. Like we like raised the minimum wage, we made some investments, we did some whatever that Bush wanted, and Bush signed it. Like the government was still like moving on. There wasn't a shutdown, even though we had a divided, divided government, and that was kind of like the mature thing to do in the midst of all of the fighting. And now there's none of that. There's no like, we're going to compromise, we're going to work with the Democrats, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's frustrating for the whole country to watch this. It's a shame that it keeps happening. And I think this is why people would rather talk about Taylor Swift and Kelce than they would about the government. Where's the aspiration here? Where's the vision here? Where are we going as a country here? There's no collective vision that we all can agree on, and I think that's part of it too. Like these guys should be absolutely isolated. Like they're trying to bully everybody. They should be absolutely isolated. And I don't know quite how you do it, but it's just it shows. And then last thing I'll say on it is, it is an absolute symptom of the just disintegration of the Republican Party. I mean, there's no way this would happen under any other like strong leader. Strong leader would take them to the woodshed. But that's part of the problem, is they're not there for. Because my thought would be, isn't there a bridge in their district? I mean, here's what I would do. I'd get these 5 guys. I would find the absolute most important thing happening in their congressional district. The bridge that's needed, decongest traffic. Like, is there a river that needs cleaned up? Like, what is the issue in that congressional district? I would add it to the budget. Like, here's $100 million, asshole, for your congressional district. Are you going to vote against it now? And and they probably would.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the problem, right? They absolutely would.
Yeah, and then you go to their district and you say, like, this guy doesn't care about you. It's not about you. It's about him.
Yeah. I mean, and I do want to spend a little bit more time, because, like, I think that with 9 or 10 months of being away from, the kind of the groupthink that happens in Washington, D.C. and just generally the process, I mean, we do have to find, like, this cannot, like, is this the rest of our lives? Like, is this the rest of our lives? I mean, really, like, I mean, I don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think and I do think that nobody wants that, right? Nobody wants, if you put it in a poll, national poll, everybody, hey, every 2 years, do you want to, have the, government shutdown, or at least like the large threat looming, 85% and 85% no, right? 100, like it's in every district. So how do we, without, and I do like your political strategy of the $100 million. It kind of reminds me like the bridge to nowhere, right? Like, whatever, we'll build it, but like, what are we doing? I mean, and how really do we bring these people back into the fold. Do you have any thoughts on, I mean, truly, 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 like, I think some of them got to go, right? I mean, I think there's a few, like, so they, the Republican Party needs to do their thing, but the rest, right? Just where's the agreement to that? We're not gonna do this.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, the party, they're members of the party that protect the insanity. And that's why even the good guys, who have protected the development of this kind of culture, what's the old saying? You got the tiger by the ears. There's no win here. It's just you let go and you're screwed, and you hold on if you're screwed. But you created this environment here where you're just now they have no control over it. So even though the ones who wanted to exploit the insanity to get elected, whether it was John Boehner who did it, and then it was Kevin McCarthy who did it. Yeah, I don't know how much longer this can go on before leaders within the Republican Party can actually get control of the party again. But doesn't sound like it's happening anytime soon because, our guy, the big Donald Duck, is still in charge, and he's certainly not going to let that happen. So this is for the foreseeable future, and that's why as many disagreements as I have with the Democrats in some ways, I wouldn't say many, but a few key disagreements on where the party needs to be. It's so far more responsible than what we're seeing here today. So it's like that's just a clear shot. But until the culture changes, until young here's like a young evangelicals, young Christians, young, maybe Republican pro-environment, doing something with climate, tolerant. They gotta rise up and say, this is you're screwing our future here, as young people, and maybe that's what it will take, But if the Democrats are smart, I would try to get those people in our coalition. I mean, you're young, you're tolerant, you're actually a Christian, like you actually try to follow the teachings of Jesus, which is like a really good thing. And you want to deal with climate change, and you may have some issues around, some of the culture issues, but you come to it with an open heart and a view of tolerance and respect. And you're able to separate your particular religious beliefs and convictions from what the civic and legal aspects of protecting other citizens are and their rights to do things as they see fit and to be free citizens too. There's a little bit more room in there for, I think, some younger evangelicals. So it could be an interesting coalition.
Oh my God, that'd be great. And I think
Wouldn't that be fun?
The Democrats could also use a little bit of younger representation. I mean, I think that just because we elect Maxwell Frost doesn't get us totally out of the age gap, that there is. Speaking about I just want to do just a shout out, just because I think it would be fun, but and you could spend a couple minutes thinking about this, or a couple seconds really, but let's shout out a Republican that you worked with, reasonable, that that you're just like, we need more folks like you.
Well, I used to work with Anthony Gonzalez, who was up in Canton area, and I had Akron and Youngstown, so our districts are very, very close to each other. He voted for impeachment of Trump. Very reasonable guy, business guy, former football star for Ohio State, so he was very much
go Buckeyes.
Go Bucks. Kind of an athlete's a peak performer's mentality, winner's mentality, and didn't like to deal with all of the BS. But he's gone now. I think David Joyce, who's a very good friend of mine up in the Cleveland area, pro-labor Republican, understands the issues around the environment, and wants to be helpful, and just thinks Democrats spend money on stuff that's not working, which is a very, very reasonable, the amount of money that we do spend on things, and we're not getting the results that we want, whether around poverty or healthcare or whatever. Just because you spend the money doesn't mean it's working, and we still have generational poverty in many, many cities that we're incapable of coming up with new ideas to kind of get us out of this mess. So that's a reasonable complaint. Now, with all of these guys, I wish there was more, courage to take on the parties, their own party. But those are, Kevin Yoder was a great guy out in Kansas. I worked with him very closely on the Appropriations Committee. I said David Joyce. So there's, I've worked with Mike Turner in Dayton, Ohio, on some cool issues. But there are good people out there, but they get swallowed up, and you have to ask yourself, am I gonna I'm chair of X committee. I'm gonna whistle in the wind, trying to do something. I'm gonna lose my seat, and in some sense, it's like, well, who cares? It's your seat. Go get a job. But in the other sense, it's like it takes you 20 years to build up for your community. Like I represented Youngstown. It took me 20 years to get to the point where I was vice chair of the Defense Appropriations Committee. I had real seniority on the committee. So it wasn't just me. It was like what I was able to do, bringing back hundreds of millions of dollars from my district. So then the political calculation for those guys is, it's not just me. It's about the next person that follows me is going to have zero seniority, zero influence, zero ability to bring money back to the district. And is that ultimately in the best interest of the people that I represent? That's their calculation, And I think like when your democracy is under threat, like it potentially could be if Trump got elected, then you better fucking stand up, because there's going to be nothing for you. So I understand the calculation, but there's so much risk on the other side. And if you just had a handful of guys, men and women in the Republican Party with the guts to do what's right and the guts to say no, like you see from a handful of them, they get primaried, they get death threats, they get, and they lose their seats, many of them. It's not worked. But I think if a collective group of them said no, like a Mitch McConnell, like a Kevin McCarthy, no, it's not, we're done. No, we're not going to risk the republic for you. Maybe it would change, but I don't see that level of courage. I don't know if you see that level of courage out there. I've missed it if it's been on the news.
No, you've not missed it. It has not appeared. So that's great for all of us. And in that, we should switch topics, because that was a quite depressing end. Tim, thank you.
We need like cigarettes when we do that, because I don't smoke, but it'd just be nice to have some soothing.
Some little transition.
Oh, well, jeez.
My big
soothing. It is bad though, but no, honestly, like you just feel bad talking about it.
Yeah.
We have to.
Energy of your,
but we have to acknowledge it.
It is it's horrendous, because you don't see the progress towards solutions to having a little bit of a semblance of your kind of regular political life back. Like, it didn't always used to be like this, and we were doing just fine. Like, we have not, like, things have not gotten better politically. Like, I think we should just let everybody acknowledge that, right? Is that at some point we took a left turn where we should have taken a right. There was two choices, and we used to be like, look, oops.
Yeah.
And just go back. And I think that's, I think that as humans, we have a tendency to not admit mistakes. But there was a mistake.
And look what's going to happen now. I mean, like, now we're going to have, there's almost no question that Trump's going to be the nominee.
Yeah. I mean, if I watched that debate, and I mean, I think Nikki Haley is going to get a serious bump from that. But
you're much more optimistic than I am.
I am. Well, I don't have 20 years of DC to bring me down. I'm a spring chicken.
It's heavy, man. It's heavy, man. It's heavy.
No, but I mean, look, I mean, I think, pundits, polling, all that stuff. Yes, it does look like Donald Trump has it wrapped up. And he's going to be the nominee. So,
I mean, it is very much resembles and maybe flat out cult following. So I don't know what Nikki Haley could say. And those guys aren't going to all get out. Tim Scott's not going to get out because he's angling to be VP for Trump, right? So he's not getting out. Christie's not getting out. I mean, Christie's going down.
Yeah. Which I'm surprised that you brought up the Donald Duck, because the Donald Duck thing really fell flat for me, but I have seen that it's kind of permeated through.
I didn't see him actually deliver the line, but I think it's hilarious. I mean, I think it maybe because I have a nice juvenile sense of humor, and I was like, yeah, any cartoon reference, you're going to get my attention. But I thought it was pretty funny, and I just thought it was funny, and I enjoy watching a guy from New Jersey just like go after Trump, like a Democrat, Republican, like I enjoy seeing that the New Jersey street fight, happening in real time,
and Christie seems to relish it, right? I mean, that's what I think that there's like the honorific fighter, whereas it's like, I'm doing this for the good, but I think Christie just likes to throw blows, it's just,
that was the New Jersey part that I mentioned.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And you've heard the Irish, you've heard me use the Irish saying, is this a private fight or can anyone get into it? So I don't know if Christie's Irish or not, but I think he's definitely embracing that sentiment of like, yeah, it's a fight. I need in. I want in on this.
Yeah. Oh, too funny. Switching topics, moving on from politics, doing one of the things that we like to do best here at We the People is talk about, innovative solutions, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and, slightly different ways to solve problems, right? And for me, I'm a big foodie, and during the summer, I basically don't cook. I eat at taco stands. I eat at beer gardens, and I just go over to my friends' places and just like when they're grilling, we're doing a barbecue, I go eat their food. It's crazy. I am a freeloader. I'm a freeloader. It's really, I'm surprised I'm allowed. I just show up. But in autumn, I start like sinking back in. I hang around a lot, my house, and so then I have to start providing sustenance for myself.
Football games,
football. And I'm like an extroverted introvert, so like I really kind of enjoy these kind of quiet times, and we're on a couple text threads, and that's that's me communicating to the world is what you see. So just know that you're very special. But this is a very long-winded way to being like, I now pay attention during the fall of what I put into my body. Try to cook whole foods, try to cook good, organic, et cetera, et cetera. And I've heard you talk about something that I really hadn't kind of put into focus, but, food is medicine. I was just taught that you should eat this because, you cannot live off McDonald's. You will die. And I was like, okay, fair. I get that. But then there's this whole movement, right? There's a whole movement about food is medicine that we do have people who are, well, you could do a much better job of describing it than I can.
Yeah. It's fascinating. 20 years in Congress, I used to cause I came from, an economically depressed area. I was always looking for innovative economic solutions, technologies, what was the next thing that I could help get our community in front of so that they can have sustainable growth, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, clean energy, whatever. And that quickly started to extend in that, well, how are we innovating in other areas? And as you know, I wrote a book on meditation, and that was like a real innovative. It's 3,000 years old,
I
but
don't know,
like it
Healing
seemed
for
like
America or Healing America. You can find it on
yeah, yeah,
Amazon.com.
yes, Healing America, yes. Great book, by the way, makes for a great holiday gift. But I like the mindfulness practices were helping with trauma. They were innovative ways, very low cost solutions to healing trauma in school kids and veterans and all this stuff. So I kept getting into like, okay, what's the most innovative thing? And this all kind of led me to the food as medicine aspect, or kind of ideas that you're talking about. And I fell into this because I met Dr. Mark Hyman at a conference in New York City many years ago. And I met him, and he's a functional medicine doctor. He actually started the Functional Medicine Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. And he became a very good friend of mine and my wife Andrea's, and he's kind of almost like our family doctor. And he started to educate me about this. And the idea that half the country has diabetes or pre-diabetes is a huge issue. That the fact that 75% of our healthcare costs are from chronic diseases that are largely preventable. It's diet, nutrition, a little bit of exercise, some, supplements. A lot of this comes because we have destroyed the soil that our food comes out of. And so our food is not nearly as nutrient dense as it used to be 40 or 50 years ago. All of the pesticides that we're spraying on our crops, herbicides, oil-based. So where you're putting oil on your crops, it has destroyed our soil. We plowed it up, take out all the carbon. And so our food doesn't have the density, the nutrition that it used to have. And so we have these chronic diseases, we have these other issues, highly processed food. So what Hyman has come up with in a whole group of people, Tufts University is just starting a food as medicine clinic there. You can reverse this chronic disease by doctors literally prescribing food, that can move you from, we're actually reversing diabetes. I mean, this fucks with people's head all the time. Like we are reversing diabetes just with food, nutrition, and diet.
Wow.
And you think like once if you're pre-diabetic, you can not be pre-diabetic. If you have diabetes, you can actually reverse it and become healthy again. And you start factoring that into the healthcare system of what savings we would have. Two of the biggest drivers of the federal budget are the Medicare program and the Medicaid program. Healthcare for seniors, healthcare for the poor, and there's an overlap there between the two. That's driving our budget deficits. So this is why the conversation in D.C. is so stupid. I mean, like stupid in the actual sense of it's stupid. It's not making any sense. It's because there are solutions in the world that if we would really put some money behind around prevention, about reversing diabetes. I mean, literally half the country has diabetes or pre-diabetes. I think it's more now. Like if we literally said we're going to attack diabetes with food and diet, nutrition, and we're going to put money in up front, we will reverse it and drive down healthcare costs significantly. So this is what Dr. Hyman, he's got a great podcast called The Doctor's Pharmacy.
Oh, yeah.
With an F.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's a great podcast, and he has great guests on there. So, yeah, I mean, literally, like, this is an innovative solution, but what you're finding out with mindfulness, with how music enhances the brain to help you learn math and helps coordinate your neural pathways and that kind of thing. What you're seeing with food as medicine is like some of the new, quote unquote solutions are really very old. And the problem is, we talk a lot about on this podcast too, like it's all about disconnection. Like the world's disconnected. We're disconnected from nature. We're disconnected from the deepest part of who we are. We're disconnected from each other. And so that leads to disease because nobody feels good. Mm-hmm. And that we're disconnected from like healthy foods. And so that leads to disease. and the solutions aren't, some of them may be technologically based, but I think some of the core ones are old school in the fact that we've got disconnected from those basic approaches, like how to cook at home, how to have a garden,
Yeah.
Walk and like stretch and work in a garden and like sweep, and like my grandparents used to do. You don't have to go to like Planet Fitness,
Yeah. Just live your life.
It's like just move, live your life, move, eat well. And my grandparents lived into their 90s because they had a pretty balanced life of like, they'd pray the rosary, which was their kind of form of
meditation,
prayer and meditation. Yep. Keeping their center. They had community support. They were, supported around their church. They were involved in the community, and my grandfather's treasurer of his steelworker union. Grandmother was part of the Rosary Club at the church. So those kind of basic things, it's like the Blue Zones. I don't know if anybody have seen the Blue Zone documentary on Netflix, but it's amazing. It's a book was called The Blue Zones, based on a National Geographic reporter who traveled the world. And he started to find all these commonalities in these different areas of the world. And he'd walk into these villages, and there would be people there that were 100, 110, 115 years old.
Wow.
And he started to see them in different places around the world, Sicily and I think Japan and others. So now that was a book and been a book for a while, and now it's a Netflix series. And so basically the commonalities are they eat really lean, mostly fish, right? Lean meats.
Pescatarians.
They garden. Olive oil instead of butter, it's basically the Mediterranean diet, just like different versions of it. They garden, right? They're always working in the earth.
Yeah.
They walk. There's a lot of walking in the villages, and then they have tight social groups, small, tight-knit social groups that provide emotional support and connection. That's very, very important. And so, this is like the core of health, and we've completely disconnected from all that. We have, millions of people live in food deserts. They live in toxic environments. They don't walk. They don't ride bikes. They don't garden. They're not into the working with the earth and plants and all of that stuff. They don't have good social connection. You think you do because you have a phone, but it's not the emotional connection that you see. And so, just to tie the whole room together here, and that's why you're seeing the deaths of despair numbers increase, the suicide numbers increase. I was just at a plumbers and pipe fitters conference last week that I spoke at, and the plumbers union, this is amazing. In the plumbers union, the deaths by suicide are 5 times higher than deaths by accident at the work site.
Wow.
It's the lack of connection. I think some of it's diet, some of it's all of these things, but that's how far away we've gotten from just a healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. That's why we started We the People. I mean, we want to talk about these real solutions to reversing disease. What does it mean to be healthy? What does it mean to live a meaningful and purposeful life? That's really important, and we've gotten away from it because our institution. Now I'm on a complete rant now, but just because our institutions that used to cultivate and kind of bring that wisdom to the larger, broader society, those institutions are all corroded now. Whether we often talk about the political institutions that used to be fairly healthy in protecting the democracy. It was the Republicans who went to Richard Nixon and said, "Get the fuck out of here! You're a fucking crook. Mm-hmm. You're bad. You're poison. You're out." And the Republicans went to him and said, "It's over," right? Because I think the institutions is as bad as they can be. That was like a stress test to the institution, and we passed. The Republican Party passed. January 6th was another stress test to the Republican Party. It failed miserably, right? And that's why everyone's so worried about the democracy, because if you can't stand up for that, what's next? And so it's just the Boy Scouts, the corruption with the Boy Scouts, the corruption in the Catholic Church. Those are like major institutions that used to pass along wisdom to primarily young boys, and they abused that responsibility big time. And now we have a crisis with men and boys, because there's no institutions there. They're saying, here's how you go from childhood and adolescence into a mature adult. Here are the steps along the way. Here are the rites of passage along the way. Here's the development of responsibilities. You got to go on the altar. You got to know your job. You got to perform in the public. You've got to, meet your obligations, your religious obligations. Same with the Boy Scouts. There's all of these, boxes you got to check along the way. More and more responsibility. Mm-hmm. So those have been destroyed. Political, social, religious organizations that carried the wisdom of the ages to our population, now gone. And so now we have a crisis on our hands, and we've got to figure out, I think, whether it's in the medical field, like just think about the institutions of doctors visit with you for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe.
Yep, maybe.
And they're out of the office. And they're going to the default position is just prescribe you drugs. So the Hippocratic Oath and all of that stuff, it's like how much money, is Big Pharma taking you on a trip this year or not? Because you keep peddling their prescriptions. Like, that's a broken institution of healthcare. Mm-hmm. And everyone's making money on a disease care system when it should be about health, not health care. It should be about health.
Wellness.
So all of the wellness, all of this shit across the board, broken. And then when the political, gridlock is there, there's no like new ideas coming through the political system. And so now that's why I think a lot of people feel like we're in a crisis. They feel desperate. They feel out of touch. They feel disconnected. Suicide rates are up. Addiction's up. Alcoholism's up. And, we long for Taylor Swift and Kelce to hold hands and go on a date.
Please.
We want to hear all about it, because it just gets us, out of that rut that we're in right now.
Oof. And I think that while we always say innovation and new ideas, it's totally fine to look back. We need to get away from the hubris of futurism, and be like, we actually did it really well back then, right? To ditch that for the sake of quote unquote progress, to ditch our farming habits, right? To ditch people caring about, soil should just be, brown sand, right? This is what soil feels like, in our farmers. And we have a huge crisis coming, when kind of the last large generation of farmers retires or is no longer able to work the land. We have a huge kind of institutional memory loss that's going to happen there.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it's okay, just to look back, maybe eat an apple,
Yeah. keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, an apple a day. That was good. That was good. Yeah. I like those. I like those simple marketing campaigns.
It's
by the Washington apple industry, by the way, which is I'm in Washington State, so I was like, brilliant move, folks, brilliant move.
Yeah, it is true. And then, you eat an apple today and it doesn't carry nearly the nutritional value that it used to. A carrot, I think you need to eat like 7 carrots to equal 1 carrot that you used to have. All of that. So we've got, but here's why I'm semi-optimistic. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to put a flag in the ground here and say, no, we the people, there are millions of people who want to have this conversation. There are millions of people who think this exact same way. And we want to try to tie them all together. Like, if you're into mindfulness in schools or contemplative practices or all these really cool ways of healing trauma, breathing techniques that are 3,000 years old, contemplative practices, meditations, mantras. Like a lot of this stuff is very, very powerful. And then you also see people who are pushing the food as medicine and functional medicine like groups. You need to see each other as allies.
Yeah.
And that we can all. And then you look at the psilocybin and MDMA and healing trauma. That all three of those groups are allies, and using these techniques in prisons to heal people who are coming out. And clearly a lot of trauma before you went to prison, a lot of trauma because you were in prison, and a lot of, good people did bad things. Those can heal them as well. And then you see the regenerative agriculture groups that are out there that are like actually sequestering carbon in the soil, rebuilding the soil. All of those people have a same mindset of like innovation, real solutions. And what we want to do, we the people, is let everybody see that they're connected at a really deep level, they have the same kind of mindset and attitude on how you address problems. That's a coalition of people who are into yoga, diet, nutrition, like that whole group of people. That's tens of millions of people that could move the needle politically. And we just got to figure out how to get together. And we hope that we, the people, that this can be maybe one of the first organizations in the country that's actually trying to put all these groups together. To me, that's pretty exciting. To me, that's an optimist. That's like, okay, what are we doing? How are we going to get out of this mess? Well, First thing we got to do is like build a coalition of people that can actually move the needle. And all of these groups have the same mindset. And they should see each other as allies in it. And they should support each other in lobbying state capitals and lobbying Congress and pushing an agenda for presidents to talk about and lead on. Yeah. And if we can do that, we'll have real change and it'll work. And we'll usher in a whole new era of like new politics. And that's what I want.
That's what I want too. Badly.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. So last week we talked a little bit about, your thoughts on the Roman Empire. We talked a little bit about it. You really used it as a way to talk about Stoicism, which I found to be really interesting. It's not a place that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, but I thought it would be great if we, maybe end these with some of these kind of sayings that you think about and that kind of affect your mentality and your decision making. And just wanted to know if you had one to share while we cruise out.
I got one. Like I said, I hit the Daily Stoic. It's in my Twitter feed and the Daily Dad, and I'm a huge Ryan Holiday fan. And the new Marcus Aurelius one that I heard the other day, and there's a ton of them that I like, but I heard this the other day and it kind of resonated given everything going on. If it's endurable, endure it. Stop complaining. Boom. If it's endurable, endure it. Stop complaining. Because we have a no whining rule in my house. Brady starts. It's like, stop whining. No whining.
Endure it. Mm-mm. Is that what you just say?
Endure yeah. Toughen up, kid.
Huh?
Yeah. And can I just share something as we're walking out on the Stoicism piece? I started rereading because I'm doing some coaching now at some of Brady's teams. I'm doing his flag football team now, and I'm going to do his basketball team in a few weeks. And so I started rereading my John Wooden on Leadership book, and I'm just going to plant the seed because you're going to be hearing me talk about this here in the coming weeks. But I'm reading John Wooden, who was probably the greatest college basketball coach in the history of NCAA basketball, 10 championships at UCLA, really the godfather of all coaching. Like, he distilled his philosophy down into a pyramid. It's called the Leadership Pyramid. And anyway, I'm reading through this book again for probably the fourth time. Like, it's fun to go back and I see all the stuff I underlined and all that. And it's Stoicism. Mm-hmm. Like, I texted Ryan Holiday. I'm like, dude, this guy was a Stoic, Like, he was talking about you're only in control of what you're in control of. He never talked about he never talked to his team about winning. Never.
Huh.
Like, he talked about, you focus in the moment, you perfect the fundamentals, you work as a team, and that's success. You become the best you can be. He's got this great definition of success is like the satisfaction you gain basically by being the best that you can be, not compared to anyone else. You know, and like, he had his finger on this stuff in like the 60s and 70s and 80s. And so, like, Belichick, I mean, you can't talk to a major coach today who doesn't espouse John Wooden, or like absolutely deeply steeped and read up on Wooden. And it's like, when I read the Stoic quotes, when I read about Stoicism, and then I read about John Wooden, and you see the depth of connection on a life philosophy and how to coach kids and make kids go from being boys to men and in a high pressure environment, it reminds me of what we just talked about the futuristic, you know, like we're only going to have the answers because they're new. It's like, this is the winningest basketball coach in NCAA history, like 10 NCAA championships. I think it was like 7 in a row or something. I can't remember. It's wild, like how many in a row he had. And he's deeply taught and understood like Stoicism, or at least the principles of it. And we want to like think of a new way to do it. It's the argument for like reconnecting to these deep spiritual values that our founding fathers understood. You know, a lot of them were Masons. What's being a Mason? It's just a series. You're the 33rd degree Mason. Every one of those degrees is a more sophisticated step of maturity, of enlightenment, of like understanding laws of nature and how the world works. And so, like, if Wooden's doing it and the Stoics did it, and like very successful people espouse these philosophies, why aren't we infusing this into our schools for our kids to learn, so that we can rebuild the emotional infrastructure of the country, so that we don't have the social problems on the back end? And that's ultimately like what we need. I feel like sports and coaches are like the vehicle that we should probably, you know, engage to do that. But these principles are so profound. They're so true. They're true for fucking Marcus Aurelius, and they're true for John Wooden, and they're true for Bill Belichick, and they're true for Phil Jackson, you know, like, and so why are we just saying, if you're an elite performer at an elite college, you know, you can have access to this stuff. But if you're a black kid in Youngstown, or you're a poor white kid in, you know, Appalachia, Ohio, like, you don't have access to this stuff. Like, is that how we want to move forward? And I'd almost rather we just taught this stuff in school, and like shop class and like a modern version of home ec and some financial literacy, and like, we'd be good to go. We'd be absolutely good to go. Like, you're going into the trades, you know how to live. You know how to balance a checkbook. You know how to live. You got a skill, and you're going to be a good person, and you're going to be a good citizen. And that was the whole thing. Like, school, like when Jefferson was promoting public education, like he wanted people to be good citizens.
Yeah. God, that was good.
Yeah. Sorry.
But we got to go.
God bless America.
Thanks for listening to The Exhausted Majority, produced by We the People, with your host Tim Ryan and myself, Parker Butterworth. We really hope you enjoyed our conversation. Please subscribe, share, comment, and follow for more episodes of The Exhausted Majority. You can also head over to www.wethepeople250.us to sign up for our email list. Until next time.